Hello everyone, my name is Chau. I'm the leading author and the presenter of our paper, Back to School on the Insecurity of Academic VPNs. This is a joint work with my colleagues over at the Chinese University of Hong Kong, Georgia Tech, and the University of British Columbia. So our study concerns VPNs. The use of VPNs to access internal services in organizations are becoming more and more common due to the pandemic and the rise of people working from home. And these sort of VPNs are targets for initial access brokers, which want to have credentials they use to break into the enterprise network. And especially because these organizations make use of single sign-on credentials. So the same credentials can be used to log in their VPN services and also their other internal services. And so these VPNs are becoming targets for the cyber criminals. The class of VPNs that we study are the VPNs that are used by academic institutions, thereby calling them academic VPNs. So in these sort of VPNs, there are three things that can go wrong in the server authentication. First of all is obviously the VPN front ends, whether the design and implementations are secure. And then the second one is whether the users configure the applications correctly or whether they are instructed to configure them correctly. The third one being the backend configurations, whether the IT admins deploy the secure attributes in the backend. So what we have done is first we have created a list of 6,600 academic institutions, and then we are able to crawl about 2,000 publicly available VPN setup guides online. And then we found we have hired a bunch of well-paid student helpers to manually review the setup guides to discover different VPN apps and protocols that are being used, and also whether these setup guides provide secure setup instructions. We also found 132 VPN applications in these setup guides, and then we tested them to see whether they implement server authentication. And then we also probed the VPN backend gateways to understand whether the backend configurations are secure. The attacker model that we consider is the man-in-the-middle attack model, where the attacker can observe, modify, and redirect network traffic. This happens when, for example, a user connects through a Wi-Fi in a cafe, perhaps because they are working from home. Then the cafe owner is able to have full control over the traffic because he or she owns the access point. So out of the 2,000 setup guides, we found that about 150 of them make use of IPsec PSK VPNs, PSK meaning pre-shared key. Most of them have PSKs that are publicly exposed. We also found some of them make use of PPTP VPNs, and indeed, inspecting some of them, we found that none of them provide any server authentication at all. And in both cases, an attacker can simply impersonate as the VPN server and perform credential theft. For the rest of the setup guides, they prescribe the use of TLS-based VPNs or SSL VPNs. While this is not a standard term, we found that basically all of them make use of TLS in some way or another to authenticate the server in the TLS handshake, and then inside the tunnel is going to exchange credentials. And thus, if server authentication is not done properly in the TLS tunnel through certificates, then the credential theft is still possible. So to test these applications, we use the open source tool MITM proxy and SSL proxy, and we consider two test cases. One of them is where we replace the server's certificate with a self-signed one by the attacker. And the other one is we have purchased a certificate from a commercial CA, and obviously the subject name will be different from the legit certificate that we try to replace. And out of the 132 VPN apps, we found that 56 of them automatically accept any untrusted cert without user interaction, We have found also 2 of them accept any certificate from commercial CAs, and thus man-in-the-middle attack succeeds in obtaining the credentials. We also found that 70 apps, when they see untrusted certificate, will prompt the user to accept or reject the certificate. And out of the 70, we found that 20 of them have the option to turn off certificate checking, and 5 of them that have the option to turn off certificate checking actually disable this option by default. We also found 23 of these apps do not show sufficient information for the user to determine whether the certificate is valid. For example, the SHA-256 fingerprint would be sufficient, but the subject name itself is not sufficient. We also found that some TLS app will scramble the password instead of really doing certificate validation in the TLS handshake. For example, we had one case where the app will actually request an RSA key from the server, and then it's going to encrypt its password with the RSA key. But since the RSA key itself is not authenticated, then the man-in-the-middle can replace the RSA key and obtain the password. And in our exercise, we simply set the public exponent to 1, and then we can directly obtain the password in the proxy. So in addition to credential theft, we also found that 10 of the apps are actually vulnerable to RC attacks. This stems from the fact that the update requests made to the server do not have certificate validation as well. And while some applications would check the signature of the executable of the update, some of them only check whether the signing cert is from a commercial CA instead of also checking the subject name or the public key. This means that we are able to simply obtain a co-signing cert from commercial CA and then sign the executable with our own certificate, and then we are able to do our RCE. So for the setup guides, so we have obtained about 2,000 setup guides, and we try to categorize them into 4 categories. One of them is where the instructions for the particular OS is not found. The second one is insecure, where the admins explicitly instruct the user to turn off cert validation or accept any certificates. We also have user insecure, where the user is not instructed to do anything, so the security would depend on the user's behavior. We also have secure instructions, where the users are instructed to manually reject the untrusted certificate, or the VPN apps is going to do it for them. Overall, we have generated 6,000 entries by crossing the setup guides with the OSs and different modes for the same applications. Excluding the unknown entries, we found that most of them have user insecure instructions. Luckily, only a few of them are actually insecure. But here we discovered that some IT admins only consider the benign cases of connections, but do not consider the exceptional cases. And so by targeting institutions with insecure or user insecure instructions, credential theft is still possible. So for the backend configurations, first, we have curated a list of VPN server gateways that use TLS from the setup guides. Then we perform a scan using the open source tool TLS scanner to try to look for the existing TLS vulnerabilities. But in order to cross-check the exploitability, we also need to do extra experiments. This is because the exploitabilities of particular TLS attacks will depend on the actual chosen server suites that are negotiated in the TLS handshake, especially because that these VPN client and server pairs are tightly coupled. The details can be found in the paper. We also found that for some IPsec-based for some IPS VPNs that use PSKs, they make use of IPv1 aggressive modes, which are classically known to be not so safe, because a passive man-in-the-middle can observe the connection and then it can perform an all-night dictionary attack to recover the PSK. In that case, the server impersonation is still possible. We also analyzed the certificates obtained from the TLS gateways. we found that many of them actually failed to verify. And when we correlate this result back to the setup guides, we found that actually about 40% of the gateways have insecure setup guides, but the certificate chain in the backend can actually verify. Thus, it is inexcusable to prescribe insecure setup guides to when they have actually valid certificate chains. So we have responsibly disclosed all the vulnerabilities to the vendors and the setup guide issues to the respective academic institutions. However, the response rates from academic institutions is quite low. While most vendors confirm the issues, two of the vendors refuse to fix the problem. One of the vendors in particular states that MITM attack is a generic attack and they don't think this is a vulnerability. So to conclude, we have presented a comprehensive review of academic VPNs, and we found numerous problems in the applications and the configurations. And it suggests that many academic VPNs are easy targets for IABs. So for developers, you should enforce proper server authentication. And for IT admins, they should consider exceptional cases when they prepare setup guides for users. And also they should properly deploy secure configurations in the backend. So that is all for our presentations. If you have any questions, you can ask. Thank you.